Please share your thoughts in comments and like this video. The story begins in a dark cave, where the main character, Touka, confronts a blue minotaur. The sight of this imposing creature leaves him paralyzed with fear and gasping for air. Suddenly the minotaur lunges at the boy, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris that scatters throughout the corridor. Touka narrowly evades the attack, utilizing the chaos to make his escape. As he flees, he reflects on how the situation spiraled out of control, particularly given that just a few days ago, he was an ordinary high school student. In short, he is a mob character in his class. However, he knew the person who caused his misery, the goddess. Inside an ancient temple, a group of bewildered high school students assembles before the goddess Isis. She greets them with a warm smile and welcomes them into her realm. To alleviate their anxiety, the goddess explains that they have been summoned to this world as heroes. They were destined to vanquish the demon lord. Regrettably, not everyone is fated for greatness. Earlier in the day, the students had taken an aptitude test to assess their potential, and one student. She exclaimed that she had unfortunate news. She called Touka and informed him that he will be discarded. Touka was shocked to hear that. The goddess explained that they were summoned to defeat the demon god. But unfortunately, Touka's aptitude is only E, which is the lowest of all ranks. She believed that Touka would only become a burden to the fellow heroes. So she asked him to be disposed of obediently for the sake of them. Shocked by this sudden turn of events, Touka drops to his knees and implores the goddess, but his pleas fall on deaf ears. He agreed that he was indeed someone who isn't really a part of the class, and he knew that he was not a leading actor. But he was mad about the fact about how she summoned him and discarded him within a short time. He was sure that other heroes would also suffer this fate. She would abandon them if she didn't find them useful. He wanted to turn the whole class against Isis. One might expect his classmates to support his claim, but they do not. Touka's failure to forge friendships with them results in his demise. They wish to continue their journey without him. Witnessing his classmates turn their backs on him is heart-wrenching, and the emotional weight of it all causes tears to stream down the young boy's face. His classmates treated him like he didn't even exist in the first place. Fortunately, among them, a female student stood up for him. The class president, Sogu Ayaka, exclaimed that was wrong. Touka suddenly feels the burden lifted from his shoulders because, unlike him, Sogu is highly regarded among their peers. Not only that, she achieved the highest rank in the aptitude test. If anyone can save him now, it would be her. She attempts to rally her classmates in support of Touka, but the goddess, foreseeing the potential disruption Sogu's influence could cause, decides to nip the problem in the bud. With a swift strike, she incapacitates the class president, sending her sprawling onto the marble floor. Tearfully, Isis accused Touka's actions of leading the heart of a precious S-rank hero Astri. She implored Touka to abandon his selfishness and accept his fate to commence their journey. But Touka couldn't care less about the goddess's theatrics. He rushes to Sogu's side with genuine concern, inquiring about her well-being. Regrettably, before he receives a response, one of his classmates seizes him by the collar and pushes him away like a discarded object. He accuses Touka of inappropriate behavior toward the unconscious girl, an accusation entirely made of lies. All Touka wishes to do is help, yet it seems the entire class stands united against him. In unison, his classmates declare that Touka should be immediately disposed of, as he serves no other purpose. The boy pleads with them, but once again, his cries are met with nothing but contempt. They deemed him as a worthless individual. And thus, Touka's fate is sealed. As the goddess prepares to cast him aside, she informs him that his demise will not be in vain. She believed that witnessing one of their classmates' deaths will better prepare the survivors for the challenges ahead. But Touka was sad because just now, his friends denied his very existence. Finally, she asks him if he has any last words. Tears stream down Touka's face as the anguish of betrayal takes hold. That's when it dawns on him, shedding tears for these individuals is futile, for they are monsters devoid of a trace of compassion. The goddess mentioned that it was fine to cry and asked him to be proud of himself for the fact that he could be a cannon folder for his classmates. But unbeknownst to her, Touka had already resolved himself. He cursed the shitty goddess with finger style. The goddess teleported him quickly after that to save her image a little bit. When he opened his eyes, he found himself in a dark cave. He heard a minute sound of water drops and Touka opened his eyes after being unconscious after the teleportation. Once again, he came to realize the grim reality. He cried his heart out due to the helplessness he felt there. He managed to calm himself down. He wondered where he should go and what to do. That's when he remembered about the skills. The goddess told him that the moment they arrived in this world, they were granted their own skills. He remembered how to check them. He mentioned status open and a screen materialized in front of him. Touka was amused to see that it resembled a game without knowing that a giant minotaur was behind him. Like a monster, it roared before attacking. Touka noticed the monster and evaded its attack successfully. But he was shocked to see the destructive power of the minotaur. He wondered if he was gonna die there. But he refused to lose his life there, so he began to run away from that monster. He found the back of a person behind a boulder. He believed that there must be others who were abandoned like him, so he decided to meet up with them and join forces. But he was shocked to see it was nothing but a skeleton. He realized the word disposal coming out of the goddess' mouth and wondered if there was really no way out. But slowing down here would mean his certain death. So he made a run for his life. He planned to use skills to overcome that situation. He might be an E rank, but he was still a hero, so he opened his status to check his skills. The status displayed that he had 3 skills, namely sleep, paralyze and poison. He wondered what the hell he was supposed to do with those 3 skills. No one could clear a game with skills like that. It was also evident that the goddess abandoned him due to that reason. He didn't seem useful and all his skills were all failure class. Using the time he was thinking, the minotaur made its way closer to him. Since he was gonna die anyway, he was determined to struggle as much as he could. He was shocked to see the miniature in front of him trying to grab his head. With desperation, Touka shouted Nai's skill name Paralyze and it was activated. Touka closed his eyes after that time and realized that he hadn't died yet. He opened his eyes slowly to see the situation. The minotaur is just in front of him, completely paralyzed. Touka was amused by his skills actually working. But the minotaur movements haven't been completely stopped. It was able to move but only at a snail's speed. Touka realized that he was jumping to conclusions all this time. Since this is so much like a game, he could actually use them to his advantage. Like one-on-one, closed room, or in a situation where he could spend as much as time he wanted. As long as the requirements are met, he felt that those skills weren't bad like he had thought. He used his skill poison on the minotaur and minotaurs started to decay. Touka was glad that his skill was really working. He wondered how long his skill paralysis and poison would last and whether they have any kind of time limit. He planned to understand those first. Thanks to that shitty goddess, time is the only thing he has got now. He decided to watch Minotaur closely until it died. The Minotaur tried to run away from him, but it couldn't do that as it was paralyzed and poisoned. Finally it had died and it had taken 1 hour for that. Touka noticed that his skills were not usable under normal circumstances. Surprisingly, Touka's level increased at the end from 1 to 258. He decided to take a deep look into that. He took the clothes of the skeleton. He wondered if he had also disposed just like him. He won't claim that he would get revenge for him, but he was determined to stay alive no matter what, until he bashed that shitty goddess head in. Several days had passed. The story continued in a calm forest near a spring. A girl is bathing in a clear river. She had clear skin as Snow White and had blonde hair and blue eyes. Much to everyone's expectations, she is an elf. She suddenly senses danger and comes out of the spring. She touches the ground to analyze the situation. She realizes that something was going on deep inside that forest. She quickly puts on clothes and goes deeper into the forest. Meanwhile, in a dungeon which is deep within the forest, there's a battle going on. Touka used his skill to paralyze numerous monsters that were surrounding him. He stands on a tall rock, defending himself against strange creatures that look like humans with 4 arms and chicken heads. He continued to use his skill, paralyzing all those monsters. He successfully manages to stop the wave, but he is too tired. He collapses from exhaustion and curses this damn game. Currently, he had gathered information about his abilities. When his target enters his field of view, he stretches out his arm like a turret. The skill is invoked when he says its name. Paralyze, sleep and poison, those were the skills he could use now. He already confirmed that paralyze and sleep would only last for 1 hour. However, his poison skill lasts until his target's death. The range to activate his skills is about 20 meters no matter what. But he had a question about how the monsters in the cave are unusually stronger than normal. Back when he had defeated the Minotaur, he got a notification that his level had gone up. According to that goddess, this whole system had been optimized to be easily understandable with his world's knowledge. But even so, jumping from level 1 to 258 after defeating a single monster seemed so ridiculous to him. If it wasn't a bug, he wondered what it was. He knew that the goddess had no intention of letting him escape from this dungeon in the first place. That's why the monsters were stronger than normal and the only explanation he could think of. He remembered the scene where the goddess declared that Touka was a failure and unneeded existence, and her foul mouth which wanted to dispose of him. He snapped at the thought of that. He stood up again after his rest. He wanted to smash that goddess head in, and then it's a farewell to this hell. He wanted to return to his old world. He used his skill poison on the monsters which he had used paralysis on earlier. Of course, he had to shout that skill name multiple times, so that he could use it on all the monsters. His skill isn't a wide area spell and would only work on a single entity. He remembered his abusive father who always beat him. He was given punishment for no reasons and had to stay in the veranda. He was also not allowed to shout. He always thought that it was his fault. He felt that his parents would be kinder to him if he listened to what they said. Even their laughter echoed inside the room when he was outside in the cold veranda. He slept at that place numerous, believing that a day would arrive when his parents would praise him as a good child. Many days had passed and one day he heard a shout inside the room. One of their neighbors noticed that and reported this child abuse to the police. He remembered that bitter past and became angry. Then he suddenly woke up from that dream. It seemed like he had passed out as he had used numerous skills. All the monsters below him began to suffer from the poison. Touka realized from the past that one's problems wouldn't disappear with a simple apology. Now that he thinks about it, his life has been hell all along. It was also about time that his skill Paralyze would lose effect. When that happens, he casted Paralyze once again. That's when he thought about a new possibility. Why not use all three of his skills together? To check his idea, he combines all three of his spells at once. What happens next is a powerful blend of magic that leaves the remaining creatures paralyzed and frothing at the mouth. His skills' effects were stacked on after another. So even if his Paralyze skill wore off, his sleep skill would work on them. Touka understands that using these three skills together makes defeating his enemies effortless. Those monsters in front of him were nothing but free experience points to him. He knew that unreasonable things would continue to occur in this world no matter what. There are people who won't listen to him and there are people who don't deserve to be alive. If they are trying to kill him, then Touka is determined to kill them first before they have a chance. Because unlike before, he now has skills at his disposal. Soon all monsters died and he got many level up notifications. He was surprised to see all of his skills level up to level 2. Touka read the book which asked him to beware of the Soul Eater. Touka wondered what kind of monster was that. That page aside, there is a lot of information in this encyclopedia on the forbidden arts, so he decided to read it on the go. He got that book from that skeleton he met in the cave. As a fellow victim, he was sure that the skeleton would mind him taking his belongings. The skeleton jaw opened at time which seemed like it was okay with it. He gave the skeleton the nickname, Great Sage. After that, Touka decided to venture deeper into the dungeon in search of an exit. He found a safe room which appeared there magically. Even though it doesn't look very comfortable, he entered it, refusing that to be his final resting place. He didn't even know how many days he had spent in this dark dungeon. He decided to take this risk as he didn't have enough food now. He entered a specific area of ruins where he could clearly see that it was a man-made. Since there was even a safe room, he believed that the exit room wouldn't be too far. Now he had gotten so much stronger and he gave the credit of that to his skills. He used his Paralyze skill again on the monsters which had big eye and small hands protruding around it. Once again he managed to defeat them thanks to his skills growth and getting familiar with them. Apparently, if he continued to use his skill and sharpen his mastery, his level could go up. Now his skills were able to target multiple enemies after leveling up. To be precise, he could identify enemies in his field of vision and could use his skill. All the enemies he could perceive as such in his head would be hit by the skill. One advantage is that he didn't have to wreck his voice. But the bigger advantage is that he could turn large amounts of monsters into experience easily. He had become level 501. The downside is that he couldn't do anything against attacks from his blind spots. He couldn't afford the tiniest shred of negligence until his skills took effect. That's why he had developed something like a sixth sense. He could detect any danger, like now where he dodged an attack by a snake and dragon-like monster. It seemed like the goddess really had no intention of letting him leave this place in one piece. He found that the beast isn't undead as its flesh is rotting. He wondered if his skills could even work against such a monster when it had already died. But he smiled as he could make sure of those things one after another. If that doesn't work, he would instantly die, and that's the kind of dungeon this was. He decided to use that monster as his guinea pig. While he was doing his crazy experiments, one of his classmates, Kashima Kabato, dreamed of better days. She remembers her friend, Touka, who was always kind to her. He had helped her take care of an injured cat. She didn't have the courage to take the cat to the vet. She berated herself as a coward. Touka praised her for being kind, which is better than a scary maniac. But now, Kabato and Touka find themselves in the same world, and Kabato daydreams about the past. Her daydream is interrupted by Ikusuba, who scolds her for not paying attention. She and her minions were bullying Kabato now. Both Kabato and Ikusuba are students in Class 2C, one of the classes that the goddess transported to this world. Unfortunately, they were considered useless and left behind by the more skilled heroes. Ikusuba has a plan to unite all the low-ranking heroes and create a group to improve their chances of survival. She automatically makes herself the leader and assigns tasks to the members. She is a B-class hero and a leader type, but Kabato is AD. Ikusuba teased her as an airhead. Ikusuba shamelessly rips open Kabato's blouse, revealing her big chest to everyone in the room. Kabato is humiliated and afraid, and tears well up in her eyes. She asked Kabato to recruit more male members using her charm. She wanted to use those stupid guys as their shields. She had already successfully persuaded half of the girls to join her organization. They are going to have a practice session on killing enemies soon. She planned to gather more members before that. Ikusuba scolds her for being naive, emphasizing the importance of doing whatever it takes to survive. She didn't believe that the people who selfishly abducted a whole class would send them back to their world. She wanted to leave the fighting to heroes who were brimming with motivation. She wanted to create an organization so that they wouldn't get abandoned like Touka. Ikusuba asked whether Kabato had a wish to be killed by somebody. Kabato was scared and had no idea about what she had to do. She wondered if the kind and cowardly Kabato who was liked by Touka was no longer good enough for this world. Touka, on the other hand, found that the skeleton is really a great sage, much like the nickname he had given him. He is studying a book on forbidden arts while experimenting on the undead creature lying at his feet. He discovers that the book's author, Anglin Berthrad, who was known as Dark Hero and Great Sage. He was thrown into a dungeon by the goddess for being inconvenient. It seems the goddess is quite ruthless. She used that place to not only dispose of E ranks, but all people who the goddess deemed inconvenient. The goddess is nothing but an evil incarnation. The dying beast grants Touka experience points once it succumbs to poison. Touka always aspired to be a kind and cowardly person. But he was now erecting towers of carcasses without being able to feel a single thing. Actually, he enjoyed that feeling of defeating others and laughed maniacally. Touka continues exploring the dungeon, hoping to find a way out. He eventually comes across a large door that seems to be close to the exit. He opened that door, but it was not an exit as he had hoped. It was another room where a large stone head with a valuable gem on its forehead guarding the way. Touka's mind thought that the traps would activate if he tried to extract the stone on its forehead. Touka decides to face this challenge, confident in his improved level and stats. But he also felt that it would be troublesome to face traps where he couldn't be able to use his skills on it. He plans to use a paralyze poison sleep combo if the statue turns out to be a monster. His stamina is almost at a limit, so he couldn't deliberate whether to attack or not for long. He finally decided to fight the monster head-on. He decided to hit it with paralysis to see its reaction. He planned to stick to the very edge of his casting range to avoid any troubles. As Touka prepares to attack, a concentrated beam of light forms within the gem. Before he can react, the laser cuts through the air, severely injuring his arm and shoulder. In pain, he falls to his knees and comes face to face with his formidable opponent, the dreaded Soul Eater, the very foe the great sage had warned him about in his diary. Please like and subscribe to know if Touka had successfully managed to escape that dungeon or not. Click on the notification icon to learn more interesting stories like this.